Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. I'm delighted that Benjamin Hall is back. I've talked about the first book that he wrote, called Saved many times. And Benjamin, one of the times we last spoke, I was like, please write another book because there was so much more I wanted to hear about your incredible story. And he's written it. It is called Resolute. And it comes out, it's already out. You have to buy it. This is an incredible book to buy for graduation and Father's Day, always, because we're getting into that season. But anyone who has overcome something difficult and challenging in their life and found on the other side of it a strength and a peace that they did not anticipate when they were in the middle of their trauma. This is a phenomenal book. If you know someone who's going through something difficult, this is a must read. As you know, Benjamin was he was hit with 3 bombs in 2022 in Ukraine when he was covering the war for Fox News. He was in a car with 5 people. He was the only person in the vehicle to survive. It was a miracle that he made it out of the country. It was because of some brave American former special forces and allies who were able post-surgery to get him through the dark of night onto a train to Poland, then to Germany, then to Texas, and then eventually to his home in London where he could be reunited with his wife and 3 daughters. And that is essentially where this story begins.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on,
So
Kennedy.
there were a lot of things that you touched on in the book because there was so much more of your story that I was eager to hear about. And it felt the last time we spoke that you had more to talk about. So I want to start with you going back to Ukraine. What was it like seeing the trauma surgeon who first put you back together after you had been, almost killed in that bombing?
One of the first things I wanted to do was go back to Ukraine very soon after I was injured for a number of reasons. I honestly felt that you must never sort of hide from the bad things that have happened, that I want to stand up again and say, you couldn't stop us, that I will get through this and I will get back to Ukraine. And I did that. And I went to see this doctor who saved my life. And when he saved my life at the beginning of the conflict, he was patrolling his forward operating, hospital with a AK-47 because the Russians were nearby, and he was saving my life at the same time.
And he didn't want you to leave. Like he did not want you to leave the hospital because of that shrapnel next to your throat.
That's right. And I finally came back and I saw
Not to
him.
mention your amputated leg and the tube coming out of your head from
That's right.
the TBI.
Yes, the eye and the thumb and the burns, a long list. But I saw him, and actually the first thing he did is he just couldn't believe it, and he cried, and he said, I don't know how you got back. That is a miracle, he said. It is a miracle that you are alive and that you are walking. And he's absolutely right. And this book is trying to look into that, I suppose, the ability to get through these things that some people can do and figure out how you manage to find the strength to do it. When I went back to Ukraine, I took the same train in that I took out. And on the way out, it was 10 hours without pain meds. And I discovered a new person during those 10 hours. I mean, I had to find a whole other level of strength. And I write about that in the book, about what my thought process was. But I lay down, on my return to Ukraine, I lay down in the same way and I tried to relive that.
Wow.
Because I wanted to go back to it. I wanted to say, the last thing I'm going to do is allow this to bubble up and to become a big thing for me. Let's face it. Let's go through it almost in another sense.
And was that a decision that you made with a therapist? And was it for therapeutic reasons or purely personal?
No, it was definitely therapeutic, but I've never really spoken to any therapist. I write about it in the book, to be honest. I mean, I've been very lucky that I've sort of always been positive. And the doctor first said to me when I got to Texas, he said, you've got post-traumatic optimism, he said. You just seem to be constantly upbeat. And I think that comes down to, first of all, everyone else in the car died that day. And I thought very early on, I'm not going to let that hold me down. I'm going to go and live for them. Let's make sure we go and live the way they'd want me to live. And I've got to try and use it for good now, because otherwise their deaths are a total waste. And we mustn't let that happen. So that's something I continue to tell myself every single day. And I talk to Pierre and I talk to Sasha and say, look, I think it's important, if you've gone through any kind of loss like that, I hope the book helps, because it's a way of looking up to this severe loss. It's a way of looking at severe pain as well. I talk about what it's like to go through some of the painful moments, and I've just really tried to break down some of those experiences, some of the things that happened to me, and yeah, and be really open and personal about it.
No, and that's I think it must have taken time for you because when you wrote the first book, I don't know if you were in survival mode, but it was definitely a different mode. And this book is far more introspective. You have a completely different context in writing this, and I think that is what is so powerful and helpful for people who are either going through something or have been through something, and maybe they don't recognize what resilience looks like and feels like.
Yeah,
But the context that you have been provided allows you to look back at that and
totally.
find the universal in that.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of things. First of all, I thought that the hard part was over once I got home. Had we learned to walk. I was home, and in my mind, I thought, "That's it. You've done it." And the opposite was true. It was when I took my injuries home, and I no longer had the doctors and the physios around me, and me and my wife and my kids, that I realized how different my life was. How you have to get through these things alone at home. That's difficult, and I know I share that with many people around America and around the world. Getting through something when you are suddenly back home, dealing one-on-one with some of these issues, that's harder. And I wasn't expecting that to be so difficult. I thought
Yeah.
I'd achieved it. And that's what when Sound of the Battle started. And I talk about some difficult moments at the beginning, pretty hard moments when I felt really lost. I talk about flashbacks and I talk about pain. But in each case, I felt these things, and then immediately afterwards, I had this amazing will to say, but I'm not going to let that stop me. Let's find a way through. And what I have found out is that resilience is not, people think that resilience is the ability to get through anything with a smile on your face and get through and it doesn't matter. That's not true. What I have discovered is that resilience is the ability to get through anything, and it might feel almost impossible and difficult, but the resilience is knowing that if you work at it and you keep adapting, that there is something good on the other side. So resilience doesn't mean that things become easy. Resilience just means that you have faith and trust in yourself, that if you keep working at it, you don't stop working, you talk, you're open, you can get through anything. And so I still have difficult moments. I still get a fair amount of pain at times. And all I know is that that's fine, that I will get through them, that I will just keep going and I'll find a way to stop them. And that, I think, is a great sense of resilience.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
So I want to talk a little bit about the pain because you talk about when you flew from Germany to Bamsey and you landed at like 2 a.m. and they had to survey all of your wounds and really figure out what was most emergent. How quickly did you go into surgery when you landed in Texas?
Almost straight away, to be honest. But the first thing they do is they put you on this metal table and they just strip you totally naked. And, I'm missing limbs, I'm badly burnt, and all the doctors just come around you. And there must have been sort of 10 or 12 women in there, each looking at every single part of me. And again, it's one of those moments where you just say, whatever you got to do, I am here, and I am not standing the way I want you to do it. And you have to open yourself up and say, right now I need your help, so you do whatever you've got to do, and I won't complain, and I won't moan. You are saving me, and that's teamwork. And, another thing I found fascinating writing the book and speaking to so many of the other people that I've spoken to is that, for a long time I thought the resilience in getting through difficult things was because you had amazing community and team around you. I now think that it is maybe, I don't know about the statistics here, but say it's like 80% of the people around you and having a great team, but 20% of it has to be you.
Yeah.
20%, you're the one that has to make that step. You're the one that has to get through the pain. And so, yeah, it's about who's around you. It's the team. It's about community. But you got to have the will to say, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up and move. And that's probably maybe harder one to find, is that self-determination.
Yeah, and that is also, the adaptation, the resilience, the overcoming pain, that is so uniquely human. But I was thinking about that as I was reading the book. Like, where does that will come from? Is it something that your parents both have strong and interesting stories, and they imbued so much of that in you as you're trying to do with your 4 daughters? But what have you spoken to people who are struggling, who are challenged with trying to find that, and how do you help them connect with that?
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few people who are really struggling, and they're struggling to find their identity and how to get the strength to do so. And like, I mean, it's difficult to know because, as you said, pain is so individual and getting through things is so individual. But, for me, I just looked back at my experiences. I looked and I learned from other people I'd seen going through difficult moments. And I just knew that there's one of two ways. There is one of depression and sadness and cutting yourself off, or there is the other one, and that's worth fighting for. And it doesn't mean it's easy to fight for that. But, again, it's back to that trust that if you do fight for it, you will eventually get there.
Yeah.
We live in a world where people expect things to happen straight away. That's not true. You got to work hard. You got to fight to get places. You've got to make sure you get there. So, it's an age-old saying, but don't give up. If it doesn't happen the first time, try again. If it doesn't happen one way, try another way. And so it's just that. And sometimes you might be in a little bit of a rut, and I just say, stand up and just go for a little walk. Even if you can't walk that far in my case, but, try and just break a routine if the routine is bad.
Yeah,
Try
the
something
first time you
different.
stood up, it was only, 3 or 4 steps?
Yeah, and boy, did I enjoy doing that. And, that's post-traumatic optimism right there. Some people would have been so depressed that their legs were gone and they couldn't walk. I saw it differently. I thought, no one in their life really appreciates or learns or remembers learning to walk. Well, I got to learn how to walk and I was conscious of it. And I thought, what a great experience this is. Look at me learning to walk and 1 foot. And I really enjoyed the process because it was exciting and it was an adventure. So that's turning something on its head, and finding the beauty in it.
And you also talk about, the humanity in pain. And, in 2023, you went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and it was the first time that many of your colleagues and friends had seen you since the accident. You had spent almost a year rehabilitating, but you were in excruciating pain before that.
That was a really difficult trip for me, to be honest. And that was a perfect case where everyone comes around and tells you how resilient you are and what you've done to. And I couldn't have felt less resilient than at any point. I mean, I felt so bad, and I was having some troubles with traumatic brain injury, and I wasn't conversing that well, and I just felt the lowest low. And I just sat there at this incredible dinner surrounded by incredible people and colleagues who loved me and were helping me, and I just couldn't get my mind in the right place. And I talked pretty openly about what that was like, and it was just scary, because you're trying to change your mind. You're trying to tell yourself this is a great place, a great location with great people, but I couldn't. But, I was invited to something else, and I went back to that, and then something else, and I went back to that. And I'm a firm believer that, I won't, if something doesn't go well, I want to try it again. I want to keep trying it.
Was that a gift from what has happened to you? Is, especially when we're young, we feel like if I don't do it now, this is my only chance to do something. Does the notion that there is another chance, you will have another way to do something and to do it better if you have regrets. Is that one of the positives that you found from?
Yeah, I think that regret is a really awful thing, and you don't want to have regrets about not trying something. And so I think I was like that before, to be honest, I mean, I always wanted to keep trying to do different things and wanted to make sure I had no regrets in life. So I think that's sort of continued, and it's fascinating to see which qualities did I have before and which qualities did I gain after the injuries.
What did your wife say?
Well, my wife would say that, I think, she has said that I was pretty much like that before. She's like that if anyone was going to get through this, it was going to be me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have done it without her. The total trust that you have in knowing that, when I was recovering, that she was going to make sure the house was in the right order, that she was going to take care of the kids.
You're half a world away.
Yeah.
You were told when you got to Texas that it would be 2 years before you got back home. I mean, I can't imagine the stress for her that she would have to internalize with 3 young daughters.
But from the minute it happened, she said, whatever we got to do, no problem. We will make it happen. There wasn't a single second that she ever said to me, oh, I don't know how we're going to get through this, or this is going to be difficult. No, it was, what do we got to do? Let's roll up our sleeves. We will do it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we've got to do it.
Yes, and your 3 beautiful daughters,
4
and now you've added a
now.
4th,
I know.
Sage. What an incredible thing that you and your wife, in order to complete your family and to affirm this incredible life that you were gifted to extend with one another, that you had your fourth baby. So congratulations on that.
Thank
and
you.
There's a beautiful letter that you've written to, at that point, it was your unborn child, but now it's your fourth daughter, Sage. And that alone is it's so meaningful and inspiring and so worth reading. So I hope everyone reads your second book, which is a completely different work. It's an extension of your journey, and I'm so happy to have this time to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Kennedy.
You're awesome,
Appreciate it.
Benjamin.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been Kennedy Saves the World, along with Benjamin Hall. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.